Alex woke to an eerie stillness that morning. The usual hum of lawn mowers and distant chatter was gone, replaced by a thick silence that made his skin crawl. Pulling back the curtains, he squinted at the orange envelope pinned to his front gate. His heart skipped a beat. Access to private road will be permanently closed as of next Monday. For community safety and compliance, no vehicles or foot traffic will be allowed beyond this point. No signature. No explanation. Just a stark warning stapled like a threat. Alex's pulse quickened as he realized the truth. The road that connected his home to the outside world, the only road he had, was being cut off. No one had called. No one had warned him. The quiet neighborhood was suddenly transformed into a cage. Grabbing his phone, he dialed the HOA office. After several rings, a receptionist finally answered, her voice clipped and distant. "Mr. Taylor, the board voted on this last week. It's final. But you can't do that. That road is the only way in and out from my house. What am I supposed to do?" Alex's voice cracked with frustration. "We understand your concerns, but this decision was made for safety. Please direct any further questions to the board meeting Thursday evening." The call ended abruptly. The chill in Alex's gut deepened. Safety? What safety? And why was no one telling him the full story? Throwing on a jacket, Alex grabbed his keys and headed out. The street was empty, but the tension was palpable. He could feel eyes watching from behind curtains and half-closed blinds. The orange notice flapped in the morning breeze, a glaring scar on the quiet suburban calm. As he drove the familiar road, he noticed fresh stakes in the ground, faint tire marks leading to a parked truck at the road's entrance. Someone was preparing to enforce the closure. Alex pulled his car to a stop near the entrance. The gate that normally stood open was now locked with a heavy chain and an ominous padlock. A hastily spray-painted sign read, "Road closed, no trespassing." He tried the lock, but it wouldn't budge. His mind raced. This wasn't just a bureaucratic hassle. This was an outright blockade. Rushing back home, Alex's phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. "Let it go, Alex. This isn't your fight." A cold shiver ran down his spine. Whoever was behind this was watching him intimately. His pulse hammered as he glanced over his shoulder, half expecting to see someone lurking in the shadows. The weight of isolation settled heavily on his shoulders. Cut off from neighbors, suppliers, even emergency services, his life was teetering on the edge of an invisible prison. That evening, as twilight bled into night, Alex arrived at the HOA's community center for the meeting. The parking lot was nearly empty, an ominous sign. Inside, the air was thick with tension. The HOA board sat at a long table, faces hardened and unwelcoming. Linda, the HOA president, stared at Alex with icy calm. "We appreciate you coming, but this decision is final. The road is unsafe for continued use, and the closure benefits everyone." Alex's voice shook, but grew firm. "This road is my only way in and out. You're effectively cutting me off. I need answers. Why now?" "What changed?" Linda's smile was thin, almost mocking. "Your personal concerns are noted, but safety concerns override them. We suggest you find alternative arrangements." Whispers echoed from the sparse crowd. Some avoided Alex's gaze, others exchanged uneasy looks. The mood was hostile, as if Alex had become an outsider in his own home. He felt the walls closing in. This wasn't just about a road, it was about power, control, and a fight he hadn't expected to face. And he was already losing. As the meeting ended, Linda leaned in, voice low but sharp. "Think carefully, Alex. This isn't just a road, it's a message." Walking out into the night, Alex's mind churned. The road wasn't just a stretch of pavement, it was a lifeline. And now, it had become a battleground. If he lost it, he would lose everything. But Alex wasn't ready to be silenced. Not yet. The morning after the HOA meeting, Alex felt a strange heaviness hanging over the neighborhood. It was as if the streets themselves were holding their breath. As he stepped outside, he noticed that the usual friendly greetings from neighbors had turned into cold nods or quick glances away. The tight-knit community he once knew was fracturing, and the source of the fracture was clear: him. Alex's phone vibrated with a message from an unknown number. "Last warning. Walk away before it's too late." He stared at the screen, anger and fear twisting inside him. Who was behind these threats? The HOA? Someone more sinister? His mind raced, but the only thing he knew for certain was that he wasn't going to back down. Determined to get answers, Alex decided to visit the local township office to pull the official records on the road. The clerk, a middle-aged woman, with kind eyes, handed him a thick binder. As he flipped through pages, his heart pounded. The road was labeled private, but the land beneath it was registered under his name, a fact he had forgotten amidst years of paperwork. That evening, Alex went door to door, hoping to find neighbors willing to stand with him. Most shut their doors or gave vague excuses. A few whispered words of support but warned him to be careful. The HOA's influence ran deeper than he imagined. Later that night, as he sat on his porch reviewing the documents, headlights swept across his driveway. The sudden illumination made him freeze. A dark SUV rolled slowly past, its windows tinted too heavily to see inside. The vehicle circled the block once more before disappearing into the shadows. Alex's skin prickled. He wasn't just fighting. A faceless organization. Someone was watching him closely. The next morning, he awoke to the sound of heavy machinery grinding in the distance. Throwing on clothes, he rushed toward the road. Two workers in reflective vests were already erecting large metal barricades, backed by a grim-faced supervisor with a clipboard. "We've been hired by the HOA to close this road," one worker said without looking up. "Orders are orders." Alex stepped forward, his voice shaking but resolute. "You can't do this. I own the land. This road is my only access." The supervisor glanced at him coolly. "That's between you and the HOA. We're just doing the job." As the barricades went up, neighbors peeked from windows, some with sympathy, others with fear. The silent siege was underway. That night, the tension ratcheted higher. Alex's phone buzzed again. "Last chance to leave. We own this neighborhood now." The message was chilling. Whoever sent it knew exactly how to hit where it hurt. The illusion of control. A sudden noise shattered the quiet. Alex's dog barked furiously at the edge of the property. Grabbing a flashlight, Alex stepped outside. In the dim light, he spotted a figure slipping through the shadows. He called out, but the figure vanished into the night. He knew then this wasn't just a legal battle. It was psychological warfare. The following days were a haze of sleepless nights and whispered rumors. A neighbor confided that several families had been pressured to back the HOA's decision, threatened with fines or eviction. Another warned Alex to watch his back. At the next HOA meeting, the board remained unmoved, their expressions unreadable. But the cracks were visible. Some members glanced nervously at Alex, others avoided eye contact altogether. Linda, the president, spoke with icy confidence. "We have the community's best interests at heart." Alex's retort was sharp. "You're pushing people out one by one. This isn't community. It's a takeover." As he left the meeting, a cold wind swept through the parking lot. A voice whispered behind him, barely audible. "You don't know what you're up against." Alex's resolve hardened. They might control the road, the board, even the fear. But he controlled the truth, and he would fight to the last breath to reclaim it. The storm had passed, but the tension lingered like thick fog around Alex's home. That morning, he sat at his cluttered desk, eyes fixed on the faded yellowed map he'd discovered buried in an old filing cabinet. It was a property map from decades ago. hand-drawn with faint ink lines tracing parcel boundaries and notes in a delicate script. Among the scribbles was a clear annotation: Access Road, owned by Taylor family. The realization hit him hard. The road the HOA claimed to control wasn't theirs at all. It ran across land that belonged to him, a fact no one had reminded him of in years. This map was a secret weapon, but it raised more questions than answers. Why? Hadn't the HOA ever mentioned this? Why had they moved so aggressively to close the road, knowing it legally belonged to Alex's family? Was it a mistake or a calculated move to squeeze him out? His thoughts shattered by a sudden knock. At the door stood Gloria, a woman in her 50s, an HOA board member who had kept a low profile. Her eyes darted nervously as she stepped inside. "I heard about the notice and the threats," she whispered. "You're not alone." Alex eyed her cautiously but invited her in. Gloria's presence was unexpected, but something about her sincerity felt genuine. She pulled out a folder thick with documents, emails, contracts, and private meeting notes. "Linda and the board aren't just trying to close the road, they're planning to privatize more community land, sell it off to developers for a hefty profit." Alex's jaw tightened. "That's why they want me out. You're saying this isn't about safety?" "No," Gloria replied grimly. "It's about money and control, and they'll stop at nothing to get it." Together, they pored over the evidence. It painted a picture of deception: forged signatures, ignored community votes, and secret deals hidden behind closed doors. The HOA had built a fortress of lies to justify their power grab, but Gloria warned, "If you go public with this, Linda, we'll come after you with everything she's got. We both need to be careful." Later that evening, Alex sat alone, turning over the old map. His family had owned this land for generations, but the HOA's creeping power had nearly erased that fact. Now it was his lifeline. Suddenly, his phone buzzed with an urgent message from an unknown number. "Stop digging, or you'll regret it." A cold wave of fear crashed over him. They were watching. They knew he'd found something. The next day, a broken window shattered the fragile sense of safety in Alex's home. Nothing was stolen, but shards of glass glittered ominously on the floor. He found a hastily scrawled note taped to his fridge. Last warning: neighbors who had once offered quiet sympathy now avoided his gaze. The silent siege was turning personal. But Alex refused to back down. He began reaching out to lawyers, community advocates, and even local journalists. His fight was no longer just about a road. It was about exposing a corrupt system that threatened everyone who dared to stand up. As night fell, Alex stood at the barricaded road, staring at the locked gate that threatened to sever his world. The map lay folded in his pocket, a symbol of hope and resistance. He whispered to the dark, "They may try to cut me off, but I hold the key." And with that, a fire ignited inside him, a fierce determination to reclaim what was his and bring light to the shadows lurking behind the HOA's polished facade. The neighborhood Alex once called home was slipping through, his fingers like sand. The once friendly faces of neighbors now wore masks of suspicion or indifference. At every turn, Alex felt the widening chasm between himself and the community, and it tore at him deeper than the road blockade ever could. It started small. Invitations to block parties stopped arriving. Morning greetings in the mailbox line dwindled to nods or hurried glances away. One afternoon, as Alex mowed his lawn, Mrs. Whitaker, the elderly woman who'd lived next door for over 30 years, crossed the street without so much as a word. "Mrs. Whitaker," Alex called gently. "Is everything all right?" She paused, eyes flickering with something unreadable, then shook her head and hurried away. At the local grocery store, whispers followed him down the aisles. Some neighbors whispered, "It's best to stay out of it," while others muttered, "He's making things worse." The HOA's silent influence was suffocating, and Alex was the spark they feared. Worst of all was the disappearance of Sam, a retired veteran and one of the few neighbors who had openly supported Alex's fight. Sam had always spoken bluntly at HOA meetings, calling out the corruption and standing firm against the board's tactics. Then, just days ago, he was gone. His house sat empty, the porch light off, and his car missing. Rumors swirled. Some said he'd left town. Others whispered darker stories of intimidation. No one dared say it aloud, but fear gripped the community like a vice. Inside his own home, Alex felt the weight of the siege pressing in on his family. His wife, Maria, worried constantly about their safety. Their 2 young children asked questions he couldn't answer. The strain was palpable. One evening, Maria's voice trembled as she looked at him across the dinner table. "Alex, maybe we should just give up. For the kids' sake, this isn't worth it." His heart clenched. He wanted to protect them from the storm, but surrender wasn't an option. "If I let them take the road, we lose everything. Our home, our future, our freedom." Maria nodded silently, tears brimming in her eyes. Outside, the tension boiled over. A group of masked figures spray-painted threatening messages on the barricades. "Leave now or face the consequences." The words gleamed under the flickering streetlights, a sinister reminder of how far the conflict had escalated. The HOA's tactics were no longer subtle. Late-night phone calls filled with heavy breathing, mysterious car engines revving outside their house at odd hours. Alex and Maria's world had become a battleground. At the next HOA meeting, the divide was undeniable. The room buzzed with tension, neighbors lining up on both sides. Some spoke passionately against the board's heavy-handedness. Others, scared or bought, defended Linda and the closure. Linda's cold gaze locked on Alex as she spoke with practiced calm. "We act for the community's safety and prosperity. Any resistance only harms us all." But then, a voice interrupted. A young mother stood up, trembling but determined. "What about those of us who support Alex? We deserve a voice too." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Linda's smile tightened. "This is not a democracy. The board's decisions are final." The room erupted in chaos. Shouts, accusations, and pleas clashed until security escorted several neighbors out. Outside, Alex caught Gloria's eye. She looked grim but resolute. "This fight is tearing us apart," she said quietly. "But it's also waking people up. We just have to hold on." That night, Alex sat alone on his porch, staring down the darkened road barricaded by cold metal and fear. The neighborhood was fractured, his family under siege, and his future uncertain. But amid the silence, a spark of something fierce stirred inside him. This wasn't just about a road anymore. It was about reclaiming trust, rebuilding community, and standing firm against a force determined to silence him. Alex whispered to the night, "They may divide us, but they won't break me." Days turned into restless nights. Every creak of the house, every shadow at the window seemed amplified by the mounting tension that enveloped Alex's world. The barricades on his road stood like silent sentinels, symbols of a battle that had become personal and unrelenting. Alex sat at his kitchen table, the map and documents spread before him. Calls with lawyers had yielded little so far. HOA's legal team was well-funded and relentless. But he had one card left to play: the township, records showing his family's ownership of the land beneath the road. If he could get a court injunction, the barricades might come down. But the process would be slow, and time was running out. Then came the knock. At the door stood Jack, a wiry man from across the street who had kept his distance but recently started, showing subtle signs of support. A cautious nod here, a brief conversation there. "I've got something you need to see," Jack said, glancing around nervously before stepping inside. From beneath his jacket, he pulled out a weathered box. Inside were stacks of old photographs, letters, and newspaper clippings, proof that the Taylor family had deep roots in the community, with decades of documented ownership and public recognition of the road as their access point. "This is from my dad's attic," Jack explained. "He's been holding on to this for years but never wanted to get involved. Thought it might help you now." Alex felt a surge of hope. This was more than just a legal case. It was a story of heritage and belonging. But hope was fragile in the face of growing hostility. That night, a shattered window greeted Alex and Maria when they returned home. This time, a brick lay in the broken glass, wrapped in a note. "Last chance, stop fighting." Maria's eyes filled with tears. "We can't live like this." Alex held her close, swallowing the knot of fear in his throat. "We won't back down. Not now. Not ever." The next day, Alex called a neighborhood meeting in his driveway. Flyers were posted around, inviting anyone willing to talk openly about the situation. His hope was to break through the silence, to find allies before it was too late. To his surprise, a handful of neighbors arrived, faces tired but resolute. They shared stories of intimidation, threats, and secret deals they'd never dared voice. A small but growing resistance was taking shape. The meeting was cut short when headlights flooded the street and a convoy of HOA board members and security appeared. Voices rose, accusations flew, and the confrontation escalated quickly. But Alex stood firm, refusing to be bullied. The standoff ended with no arrests, but with a chilling message from Linda herself. "You're making a mistake. This neighborhood will never be yours." As the convoy drove away, Alex realized the fight had reached a tipping point. The community was no longer just a battleground for a road. It was a war over identity, power, and survival. That night, Alex sat on his porch, the weight of the battle settling heavily on him. But amid the chaos, he felt a fire burn brighter than ever. They could close roads, break windows, and spread fear. But they could never extinguish the truth or the spirit of a man fighting for his home. The morning sun barely pierced the thick fog that clung to the neighborhood as Alex sipped his coffee, eyes scanning the barricaded road that still stood as a stubborn symbol of the HOA's power. The fight had drained him, but the fire inside burned fiercely. Suddenly his phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. "Meet me at the old community center, midnight, alone." His heart skipped. Could it be a trap? Or the help he desperately needed? That night, beneath the cold glare of streetlights, Alex arrived at the deserted community center, the building long abandoned but steeped in local history. The air was thick with anticipation and danger. Inside, a shadowy figure stepped forward. It was Marcus, a man once known as a loyal HOA enforcer, feared by many for his ruthless tactics. Alex's jaw tightened. He hadn't expected an ally here. "I'm tired of the lies," Marcus said, voice low but steady. "Linda and the board are sinking this neighborhood into corruption and fear. I can help you, but you need to trust me." Alex hesitated, memories of intimidation and threats swirling in his mind, but Marcus's eyes were sincere. "What do you want?" Alex asked cautiously. "Information and leverage," Marcus replied. "I have access to internal HOA records, emails, financials, meeting transcripts, enough to expose their corruption." Alex felt a spark of hope but knew the stakes were higher than ever. "Why risk this? What's in it for you?" Marcus's jaw clenched. "Because I want my neighborhood back. Because I believe in something better." Over the next several days, Marcus fed Alex a steady stream of damning evidence, documents proving illegal dealings, secret kickbacks, and manipulation of votes. The pieces of the puzzle were falling into place, painting a devastating picture of betrayal. But with each revelation came new threats. Anonymous calls, shadowy figures lurking near the barricades, and a chilling message left on their doorstep. "Stop now, or else." Alex's family grew more fearful, and Maria begged him to consider leaving. But Alex refused. With Marcus's help, they now had a chance to turn the tide. Together, they strategized a plan to present the evidence to the township authorities and local media. The goal, to strip the HOA board of their power and reclaim the neighborhood's trust. Yet the danger was palpable. On the eve of the planned disclosure, Alex found his car tires slashed and a dark note tucked under the windshield wiper. "You were warned." Despite the intimidation, word was spreading. Neighbors who had kept silent now approached Alex cautiously, offering support and information. The community was beginning to rally. At the hearing before the Township Council, Alex and Marcus laid out the evidence with clear, unshakable facts. The room buzzed with shock and disbelief as the truth unraveled. Linda and the HOA board members sat stiffly, their confident facades cracking. The council announced an immediate investigation and suspended the board's authority. As the hearing ended, the crowd spilled into the streets, some cheering, others whispering uncertainly. But one thing was clear: the balance of power had shifted. Walking home, Alex looked at the barricades one last time. They still stood, but their meaning had changed, from a symbol of oppression to a reminder of resilience. Marcus clapped him on the shoulder. "This fight's far from over, but we've taken the first step." Alex nodded, feeling a renewed sense of hope. The road ahead was long and uncertain, but now he wasn't alone. And as the first rays of dawn broke over the neighborhood, Alex knew that together they could reclaim not just a road, but their home. The township's suspension of the HOA board was a victory, but it felt fragile, like the calm before a storm. Alex knew Linda and her allies wouldn't give up easily. Their grip on the neighborhood was deep, and desperation made them dangerous. Word spread quickly, and for the first time in months, a small crowd gathered near the barricades. Neighbors who had once turned away, now looking to Alex and Marcus as leaders. Hope flickered in their eyes, but that hope was tested sooner than expected. One afternoon, as Alex spoke with a group of neighbors about the next steps to rebuild community trust, the familiar sound of engines roared down the street. A convoy of SUVs, this time more numerous and menacing, rumbled toward the barricades. Linda and several former board members sat inside, flanked by hired security. Linda's voice boomed through a megaphone. "This is our neighborhood! You have no right to stand in our way. Move these barricades or face the consequences." Alex stepped forward, voice steady. "The township has suspended your authority. You don't control this community anymore." Linda sneered. "We control the money, the land, and the people who matter. You're outnumbered and outgunned." The crowd tensed, ready for confrontation. But before things escalated, a loud siren blared, and police cars swarmed the scene. Township officers, armed and determined, quickly blocked the convoy's path. The standoff ended with Linda and her group escorted away in handcuffs, their faces a mix of fury and disbelief. Cheers erupted from the neighbors. The barricades came down. The road, once a symbol of division, opened again, free and clear, but the victory was bittersweet. In the aftermath, Alex discovered new challenges. The neighborhood's wounds ran deep. Years of mistrust and fear couldn't be healed overnight. Some families packed up and left, unwilling to face the lingering shadows. Yet others stayed, inspired by Alex's courage and the hope of renewal. One evening, as the community gathered for a block party, tentatively rebuilding bonds, Alex received a call from Gloria. "There's something you need to see," she said urgently. "In the old records room at the township office. I think Linda hid something there." Together, they uncovered documents revealing a network of similar power grabs in neighboring communities, HOAs exploiting their authority to push out residents. and profit from their land. The fight was bigger than Alex had imagined, but with every step, Alex's resolve grew stronger. He stood at the edge of the road, looking out at the community slowly coming back to life. The battle for the neighborhood was far from over, but for the first time, the future felt within reach. The town hall buzzed, with an electric mix of anticipation and tension. Months of battles, threats, and sleepless nights had led to this moment. Today was the final hearing, where the township council would decide the fate of not just Alex's neighborhood, but the entire region's HOA governance. Alex sat in the packed chamber, the weight of the journey heavy on his shoulders. Beside him stood Marcus and Gloria, their faces grim but determined. Outside, dozens of neighbors gathered, a sea of hopeful eyes watching from the windows. When the council members filed in, silence fell. Alex stood to speak. His voice, steady but passionate, filled the room as he recounted the years of intimidation, the hidden documents, and the roadblock that symbolized more than just a dispute. It was a fight for justice, community, and truth. Then came Gloria's presentation, a detailed exposé of the network of corrupt HOAs operating under the radar, using fear and manipulation to seize control from rightful homeowners. The evidence was undeniable. The council deliberated in hushed tones, tension thick in the air. Finally, the chairwoman cleared her throat. We find the actions of the current HOA boards in these communities to be unlawful and damaging to the spirit of homeownership and community. Effective immediately, we revoke their charters and appoint an independent committee to oversee the restoration of governance and trust. Relief swept through the room like a tidal wave. Cheers erupted outside. Alex felt tears sting his eyes. Not just for his victory, but for the community he had fought to protect. But just as the celebration began, Gloria pulled Alex aside, her expression serious. "There's one last piece," she said, handing him a small envelope. Inside was a letter, unsigned but written in the same delicate script as the map Alex found months ago. It read, "The road you saved is only the beginning. Watch the shadows carefully. True freedom requires vigilance." Alex's heart pounded. The fight had exposed a deeper, hidden threat, one that extended beyond corrupt boards and legal battles. As night fell, Alex stood once more on the now open road. The barricades were gone, replaced by the soft glow of street lamps and the distant laughter of neighbors reunited. He thought of Maria and their children, of neighbors who had turned from strangers into allies. He thought of the battles won and the unknown ones still ahead. With the letter clutched in his hand, Alex whispered into the cool night air, "This road leads home, and I'll guard it, no matter what." The neighborhood was free, for now. But the shadows lingered, and Alex knew the true journey was just beginning.